Okay. Good morning. This is
Morning.
February 9th, 2025. Welcome to the Abundant Life Center's service. And today we're going to be talking about Thomas Jefferson's Bible with the annotations from Thomas Huning. And Eric is going to lead our discussion today as we look into some different topics on the life of Jesus, his ministry. Um, so let's begin let's begin by lighting the God candle. Um, the God candle is the symbol of the one true power in the universe, known by many names, and the name you choose to use is welcome here. And okay, so we'll start because this is the first Sunday of our first meeting of the month. We'll start with our beliefs. Our beliefs. Divine love is the source from which all of life flows. The direct experience of that ultimate source is available to all. All life is a unique expression of the divine to be revered. We co-create our world with the ultimate source and with each other through consciousness. There is truth and wisdom in all spiritual paths, and we choose the path of love. Okay, and now we'll move on with our opening song, which is Blessing Day by Donna Lynn. And now Eric is going to share with us a meditation called Becoming One with Everything. Well, that was great meditation. I think it was really something we can appreciate these days. If we just remember to hold true to our core, the whole world just might align with us. So that now it's time to introduce Eric Inglin, who is going to talk to us today about Jesus's teachings and his mysteries. And although we were scheduled to read many pages in this Bible, we're not going to dissect every single one of them. We'll go over some topics that Eric finds valid for discussion. Eric.
All right. Thank you. First, I'd like to say is that what I'm going to express is my opinion, and it's not any intention to offend anybody. I may have a little bit different view about the Bible, and you probably will see that, and we can discuss about it. But so I'm just going to go through my notes, and we'll have a discussion at a later part of it. I mean, I think we can agree that God is all compassion, all love. But it seems also that we need to use scare tactic to bring people into kind of submission to this idea. And it within these scare tactics, how do you say tactics? We use good versus evil, love versus fear, openness, honesty versus power, secret and control, forgiveness, heaven versus sin and hell, material goods versus spiritual good. We always bring it back to the duality that we live in. Obviously, this starts very early when after we are born. We don't know about duality when we are born, as we are infants. But as parents start to educate the kid about things that are acceptable and things that are not acceptable, slowly this duality creeps into the mind and experience of each one of us. Good behavior leads to salvation, while bad behavior leads to sin and condemnation. And truly, we see that also in the Thomas Jefferson Bible. He keeps perpetuating this duality in the parables that he chose, really in putting into his Bible. Obviously, Jesus is not only talking to all by using parable, but he uses mainly parable also not to offend the ruling class, which doesn't necessarily make it easier in terms of understanding what his message is, and can be confusing for people who listen to this message. At the end of the day, they will have to interpret it himself. Now, there's obviously a growing group of people around Jesus to the point that the Romans could not control this situation. So the only way that they saw is essentially to join it and control it from inside. And this is what established the Christian religion, which ultimately controlled also the message. Okay. Religion and church keep control over millennia. I mean, this has been going on for a long time by not explicitly furthering the spiritual message of Jesus and other ascended masters for that matter, which at the core have the same message, which is a message of love and compassion, okay, in a summarized form. You can look at all the other ascended masters. They have the same or similar message. Even so, Thomas Jefferson cut out what does not feel constructive from his perspective. He keeps the original teachings of good and bad and controls through love and fear in his Bible. And yet he admits that he struggles applying these fundamental teachings too. And probably we all struggle with that. I think a lot has to do with the misunderstanding of the soul and ego. Some things that does not come forth very explicitly in the parables, but it keeps us in our duality that we continuously keep expanding on. And for instance, we seem to keep finding new names for diseases, right? Well, this creates duality between being healthy and a new disease, right? We just expand on these dualities that already exist and keep it growing. We name everything, and it gets more and more complex. But truly, the message is always the same, simple, love and compassion. This is really the source of life here on our planet. I think using the Bible as a recipe book about what to do and what not to do in various circumstances is a never-ending ego-driven exercise that extends beyond Jesus's teachings. Okay, and we kept doing that by our written laws. Some may reflect the teachings of Jesus in terms of good and bad, and others will not. The Course in Miracle is, in my view, a last-ditch effort to explain the role of ego and the Course in Miracle definitely condemns it. You have over 200 references to the ego as a bad thing. Now, we're not going to debate if the ego is a good thing or a bad thing. It has a role to play, and it does. Personally, through the material that I reviewed about what the future of Earth is, and the teaching of the Course in Miracle, and the channel materials that has been collected and published, okay, I think Spirit gave humans or humanity an opportunity to spiritually prepare for a major and cyclical transformation of Earth, which is in process, as a matter of fact, right? These transformations have happened in the past. This is nothing new. We just don't seem to be able to remember beyond 12 to 13,000 years. But the history and the archaeology, as well as all the research that was done on space weather, clearly shows that there are cycles that come over and over again. And if we look at what's happening currently on the Earth, pole shift is a major one, and it's in progress, clear indicators, as well as the rapid change of our weather, which is maybe done partly to us with our CO2 production, but is actually in a bigger scale produced by space weather. The sun has a huge role to play, and where we are currently in our cycle around the galaxy plays a major role in terms of our weather here on planet Earth. So knowing who we are as a species and as an individual, okay, which is truly an expression of divine love, and practicing our spirituality towards enlightenment and ascension, while not worrying to save us from a possible physical demise, puts us into a better position towards our soul progression. Because let's face it, we're all here for soul progression. We're not here for any other reason. It's a playground. And this playground, we use it to grow. And if the role of religion was to prepare us for such events, okay, then I'll really give religion a big fail, because it doesn't do that. Okay, it puts us in a position of control and while collecting the dues at the end of the day. And this is how they've done it for centuries. There are some people who have essentially benefited from religion who went onto a spiritual path. I'm not saying that this doesn't exist, but for the majority of the people, that's not it at all. They just go to church, and that's about it. I think the 10 Commandments are still valid and worthwhile to follow, and they are really a base or root in many religions. While it seems also that some people have good reasons to circumvent them and even make a virtue out of circumventing them. And this seems to be that religion is losing control or losing its grip on the people in some ways, as people worldwide are less going to church and are finding other distractions or finding other paths to enlightenment and ascension. But following the 10 Commandments alone is not enough to take an individual on a spiritual path. And Jefferson's Bible, even though it's simplified, it doesn't do that either. If I take the spiritual view of Jesus' teaching and recognize, when looking around the planet as well as the universe, that everything exists, it just is, okay, at any moment, independently of my opinion of good or bad, it just is. Then everything calls for acceptance, really. And when I say everything, and this should be including rapists, murderers, destitutes, dictators, as well as saints, donors, the servants, but also animals, plants, water, the air, polluted or not, they all call for acceptance in this very specific moment where we are. Okay, the now. The now is the only time, the only point where you can change something. You cannot change anything in the future. You cannot change anything in the past. Everything changes in this instance. Okay, it's this very single moment from where you are, and you try to be always in a neutral position. If you're in a position of acceptance, you're neutral. If you reject something, you're not neutral. You reject something and it works energetically on you, okay? And at the end, this energy gets passed on to others, okay? In the now, you create that currently now and pass it on to others. So truly, what we want to do is stay in a neutral state. And by accepting or surrendering our trauma, which are often what drives us to think about something very strongly, okay, that sometimes are even inherited for our lineage. Not all trauma are yours created. You have traumas that have come down your ancestry, okay, that are passed on energetically to you and that influence your life. And recognizing that as well as dealing with that, letting these energy goes, puts you back into a neutral state. I think if we want to change our reality, we need to heal the trauma. Otherwise, it reimprints this energy of the trauma into the fabric of global consciousness over and over again. So we keep essentially perpetuating the status quo. Acceptance and forgiveness are key actions towards this surrendering. Now, it seems that this looks like capitulating, but it's not. It is recognizing our conditions, or our condition, and applying our skills to manifest not as a creator, but as a co-creator. Remember, you co-create on the shoulders of a lot of people who came before you. Okay, you build on top of that, and your children will build on top of what you did. Okay, that's just how we keep evolving. Uh, Many of Jesus' teaching focused on immediate concerns of the people at the time, concerns and teachings that are very earthbound and riddled with injustice. The spiritual teachings, which may have been taught by Jesus at nauseum, well, they didn't really make it into the Bible, because at the end of the day, the Bible was written by his apostles and may not have had the spiritual experience of Jesus, which is much deeper than truly just the good or bad, the transformation of water into wine and so on and so forth, the things that are clearly visible and obvious. The reason for that is probably because it's very abstract. Okay, it's something that is happening inside of you. It's happening outside. I can't see in any of you that you are on a spiritual path or not. You're the only one who knows that. You may struggle being on it, you may not be on it, you may be far advanced on your spiritual path. You may need coaching, or one suggestion where to go further on your spiritual path, but this is not visible. And the second is that it also involves reprogramming of the subconscious mind, because the subconscious mind is your driver in your life, and is strongly impacted by the trauma that you carry. Okay, and this is not an easy job to reprogram your subconscious mind. It's always there, it always drives you, and you need to change truth that it has to a new truth that it will accept and not filter out. Okay. Thomas Jefferson himself struggled to fully embrace Jesus' teaching, but I think we all do. And then, as an example, he owned 130 slaves in his lifetime. But while he was not punishing slaves for not doing their job, he had no problem asking other people to punish them. Well, at the end, in his name, right? Now, we're not here to judge Thomas Jefferson. In many ways, it's difficult to make decisions that impact other people that deeply. So that's a tough job of being alive. Thomas Jefferson, at the end of the day, is considered a good man for many other things that he did, independently of his shortcomings. But what it also shows is that we're all struggling with the purity of our thoughts and our actions. And that already for a long time. And this has not really changed. The church is obviously not encouraging the change. The message has helped the church grow over a century and keep money flowing. But it's really not the responsibility of the church to put us on a spiritual path. It's something we need to choose to do. Okay, it's something that takes time, effort, and dedication, and with uncertainty of the results that can be achieved in any form, for that matter, there is no guarantee of anything once you are on this path. Only trust and faith are the assets that you carry on this journey. So, with this introduction from my side, which puts the Bible a little bit on the back seat, I still want to go through some of the parable that I chose that show a little bit the issues that I put in perspective here in this introduction. And we'll go through 4 of them. The first 3, we're not going to discuss them, we're just going to acknowledge them. And the 4th, I would like to open it for discussion. The first has to do with showing the duality that is still strongly presented in the Bible. And it's a threat through fear and control, the final judgment day, page 98. And I'm just going to read through it. And if you have any question or comments, please feel free. The kingdom of heaven is like a man who sows good seed in the field. But while man slept, his enemy came and sowed seeds among the wheat. When the wheat sprung up, so did the weeds. The man said to his servant, "Let both grow together until the harvest. And then I will say to the reapers, gather first the weeds, bundle them to burn, but gather the wheat into my barn." Then Jesus sent the multitude away and went into the house. And his disciples came to him, asked him to explain the parable of the weeds. He answered, "The sower of good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world. The good seeds are the children of the kingdom, but the weeds are the children of the wicked one. The enemy that sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the world, and the reapers are the angels. As the wheat are gathered and burned to the fire, so shall it be at the end of this world. The Son of Man will send his angel, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend and those who do iniquity, and will cast them into a furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Then shall the righteous shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. So there's a lot of stuff in here. The good, bad, the threats, the love, the fear. I mean, you name it. Everything is there to keep you straight and on your path. And the judgment too. It's even in here. What's good and bad. So now, if you take a text like this, people interpret it. Well, they interpret what's good, okay, and also what's bad, and they're going to tell you what you do is good, what you do is bad. And we are already back into this freaking duality that has nothing to do with love and compassion. Okay, so that's a strong one in my perspective with regard to this duality. With regard to the spiritual journey that is between you and God, is page 75 about devotion. Take heed that you do not give alms to be seen by others. Otherwise, you'll have no reward from your heavenly Father. When you give alms, do not sound a trumpet before you, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, that they may have glory of man. I say to you, they have their reward. But when you give alms, let not your left hand know what your right hand does, that your alms may be secret, and your Father who sees you in secret shall reward you openly. And when you pray, you shall not be as the hypocrites, who love to pray standing in the synagogues and in the corner of the street, that they may be seen by men. I say to you, they have their reward. But when you pray, enter your closet, and when you have shut the door, pray to your Father in secret. As your Father who sees in secret shall reward you openly. But when you pray, don't use vain repetitions as the heathen do, for they think that they shall be heard for their long prayers. But rather, not like them, for your Father knows what things you have need of before you ask Him. So here, the message is, at least from my perspective, clear. It's an internal job. It's not something outside that you do. It's inside, and this is where you recognize your spirituality and you work from inside towards the outside to change the outside. Okay. Another spiritual teaching is about humility and the little child, uh, and a little bit shows also how the interpretation is going on that. His disciple asked, "Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven?" Jesus called over a little child and sat him on their midst and said, "Unless you're converted and become as little children, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. Whomever shall humble himself as this little child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven." Now, if I take it from a spiritual perspective, okay, I think the parable has less to do with humility than to be able to go back into a state of innocence uh, where thought and actions are genuinely good and loving, which is our original state when we're born, right? I think from an earthly perspective, uh, it's hard for me to accept that humility is a term that summarizes the experience of a child. It just doesn't make any sense to me. You come as a child, as an infant, as a blank slate. You have this innocence, you have these needs. And in reality, if you look at all the manifestation, gurus and explanation, they tell you you need to go back to the state where you believe that what you have or what you want, you already have it. And this is clearly a situation we can see that with our grandchildren. We tell them about something, and guess what? They're already there. They already want it. They know they have it. When do we go? What do we do now? Right? It's something that is already theirs, and this is really where this comes from. Uh, so again, interpretation plays a huge role in the parables that are presented in the Bible. Uh, then one that is likely not from Jesus's teachings. It talks about greatest prophet. It's page 143, and it's fairly long, so I'm just going to read the summary of it, which is clear enough. The Jesus Seminar considers that this Luke parable, originally intended to show Jesus's departure and return, to be highly edited by the early Christian community, then copied by Luke and Matthew. So here it goes. A man goes on a trip, entrusts his money to his 3 slaves, then returns to hold them to account. 2 slaves who turned a profit are rewarded. The third, who hid the money in a napkin, was chastised, and his money given to the slave who made the greatest profit. Well, seems there's a lot of ego involved in this whole exercise. I have a doubt. I have a lot of doubt that Jesus was truly teaching that kind of teachings to his people. So I think, at least for me, it shows that there are things that were slipped into the Bible, and probably also by church over time were eliminated, and we know that things were eliminated. How do you say, in the process of writing the Bible or rewriting the Bible over and over again, plus all the interpretation from everybody brought into that. It seems that to me that the Bible often has more to do with lawyering than it has to do with truly messaging. just because it needs so much interpretation. So one that I would like to discuss is actually one that calls, many are called, but few are chosen. It's the page 139. I'm going to read it too. The kingdom of heaven is like a household who early in the morning hired laborers to work in his vineyard for a penny a day. About 3 hours later, he saw idle men in the marketplace and hired them for whatever salary is right. He did the same 6 and 9 hours later, asking why the men were idle and offered them whatever was right. At the end of the day, he instructed his steward to pay them, last to first. Those hired last were given a penny, leading those hired first to expect more. But they likewise received a penny. They complained, saying that the last hired only worked 1 hour, but were paid equal to us. The householder answered one, saying, he did them no wrong, since the man had agreed to work the day for a penny. Take what we agreed and go your way. It is not lawful for me to do what I wish. Is it not lawful to do for me to do what I wish with what is mine? In your eye, is your eye evil because I'm good? So the last shall be first, and the first last. For many are called, but few are chosen. Well, I'm going to put in opposition a statement from Cornel West that says, justice is what love looks like in public. Okay, so I open the discussion for this last parable and let you essentially debate the problem, because I could not solve the problem either.
Would you repeat that last statement? I didn't quite get it.
Justice is what love looks like in public.
And Jesus
Oh,
is
Jesus.
said to have said that through which disciple?
Now, Jesus did not say that. This was Cornel West.
Oh, Cornel West. Okay, and who's my ignorance? Who's Cornel West?
I don't know. I'd have to look.
But you just like the statement, huh?
I love the statement. Because it resonated with me. It felt like, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, justice, I mean, you're always going to have contradiction, but justice is what makes life possible or with one another. It just brings back the whole law issues and lawyering that is always present. So I can't resolve it. I cannot reconcile it with my thinking. Certain aspects of the parable are right for me, and other aspects, I have to say, something is not right.
Well, with regard to Cornell's statement, there are a couple of words there that we each could interpret differently based on our own experiences and our knowledge. Like, what does justice mean? Maybe to him, justice meant love. To me, it doesn't feel like love.
What does it feel like to you, Carol?
Justice is something outside of love that we do in the earth plane.
Expand a little bit more.
I don't know how to say this, but in the all it is, as Eric was talking about, is love. Then you have to say, if A is equal to B and B is equal to C, then A is equal to C. So then justice would be love. But in my mind, I can't do that. And I guess that's what Eric is saying too.
Well, I think saying you can't do that, I think it's parallel to saying killing someone is equal to holding a baby, which is equal to a flood that decimates 1,000 people. We don't tend to view them as the same, but in terms of being neutral, that proposition that Eric put out, they would be the same. I gather that's what you're kind of saying, Carol, huh?
This whole business of Jesus's parables are hard to interpret. I think each person almost comes out with a different answer. Maybe that's what was intended. That our decisions are personal, not public. Not you don't get them from the judge. You get them from your heart. And I think Jesus was pushing the heart, saying,
And as
I
Eric
get you to
says,
think for yourself and feel for yourself and end up with being the right thing, even to your neighbor didn't think so. Now, I know this may sound contradictory, but I think he's pushing a line of thought that is think for yourself, but try to end up with a compassionate, ethical thing, and you'll be on the right track. And if you track down many of these things, if you try to solve it by like the judge does, you ain't gonna get it. Jesus was a compassionate person that wanted people to love one another, but it might be more complicated than we expected.
Was he really? I don't get that in the italics. I don't get a whole lot of compassion or love.
no, I don't either. I agree.
You get compassion of ethics.
Well,
Being
when
ethical.
I was reading this, I thought, well, I think I might have said in the past, while I'm not into the Christian religion, I see Jesus as a teacher, but I certainly don't embrace most of what he said in this, or is alleged to have said. There were so many things that I just shook my head at.
Yeah, me too.
In reply to what Eric, that parable and listening to it today, what I'm thinking it might be related to is people that come, to whatever it is, salvation, however Jesus was trying to message people. It's like whether you've done it all your life or do it at the very end, you will be treated the same.
Mm-hmm.
You've come to that place in yourself and in your heart and your essence. That's what I gather in listening to it today. And so he's saying, you're the same, whether you're the first or last, the last shall be first, the first shall be last. You're the same. It never felt that way to me before. It was kind of like putting down the first and the last, but that's how I hear it today.
I think that's good.
Well, I have an example of a friend of ours that told us one time he'd really been a Christian all his life, and it sure pissed him off that he would go to heaven, but there would be some guy that was a jerk all his life, except at the end, the guy got the message of how to be a good person. And they both go to heaven. He says, and I worked all my ass off, and this guy gets almost a free ride from Jesus. It really pisses me off, he said. But it's what the message is, that it's never too late to be a good person.
But you see, we also extrapolated duality into the oneness by saying there's a heaven, there's a hell. Well, that's not oneness. They're just exporting duality into the oneness.
I don't think Jesus taught oneness. I don't hear any message of oneness in, it's just like do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It's still oppositional. I didn't notice any message of oneness in this.
That's correct.
Text.
I didn't either.
So I don't expect that his parable would say that. And I don't know why he doesn't have a message of oneness. It could be that. consciousness has evolved in terms of perspective since that time, or he was speaking, when you talk about moving from one emotional state to another and trying to help somebody along, you can't take them generally from fear to excitement in one step. It has to be moving along that continuum. So he's taking people from where they are in perspective and understanding towards something, perhaps,
But
Using
this
a
is-
carrot
this
and a
is-
stick.
Yeah, but this is a very good point, because this is where when we are on a spiritual path, we exactly go through that. It's a progression, but we have to recognize it consciously to be able to make this progression. Otherwise, it's just a text, it's just a few words. It's nothing that moves you. It's nothing that drives you in a direction. And I think this is where, if something that Jesus was teaching us was to recognize that we can use these parables and teachings to get onto a spiritual path, because Jesus was certainly on a spiritual path. Okay, he knew exactly what was going on. He knew that he had a role to play, and this, in the understanding of different dimensionalities of our life, okay, is what was his divine plan. It wasn't just by chance that he got to do what he did. So he knew exactly what his spiritual path was.
I'm a little confused on page 99. Who the heck is the Son of Man?
What's that?
On page 99,
him. I don't know.
this was this
of
is
Man.
back to the parable about the seeds in the field. And he asked the sower of the good, he answered, the sower of the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world. So the sower of the good seed, he might have been talking about himself as the Son of Man. He didn't call himself the Son of God, but I think that might be interpreted as good versus the good slash God versus bad slash devil, as the one who sows the weeds. So the Son of Man could be interpreted as God.
Well, and then the Son of Man sends his angels, and they shall gather out of the kingdom.
So who do the angels belong to?
I don't
God.
know, Son of Man, his angels. So I guess the Son of Man owns the angels,
Yeah, well,
and throw them into a furnace of fire where there will be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Anyway, Son of Man kind of took me for surprise, because I don't think I've read the Bible and noticed that. So that was an odd thing.
well, Cindy, you might be the most biblical scholar of the group, because she's probably had the chance to study every one of these words in depth. What's
That's not what they
what's
do.
your what's your call on the Son of Man versus Son of God? How did your church interpret Son of Man?
Basically what you're saying, Jesus was the Son of God, and he also was the Son of Man. He was perfect human, perfect Son of God, Spirit. So that's how we would have said Son of Man was Jesus.
But
Then
you
we
see,
all are Son of Man and Son of God.
this is interesting, because it's exactly what I was going to say. But he puts into these few words the oneness of everything, right? He's the Son of God, but he's also the Son of Man. It's because we are God, but you're also serving God, right? That's a oneness that we are, really.
I don't think he ever said he was the Son of God, so I don't think he was saying oneness and saying he was the Son of Man. I don't know, I could be wrong, but that's
Well, he said something even stronger. He said, I and my Father are one.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's that little fluid sometimes confusing. Okay, I and my Father are one,
You did.
and then I'm also Son of Man. I was born of Mary, and
And some
I-
random sperm donor that we can't really put our finger on.
Thank you. Thank you,
this
Cindy.
well, this is very interesting because I look back and I was so in a duality of like saved and unsaved, or that being saved was so important. And that my church gospel outreach was take that news to all the world. But we had I look back and it's very dual, very good and bad, and very much well, it's so funny now, but we're the good guys. We're the chosen.
Mhm.
We were somehow led. I mean, we made the choice, but we were also chosen, and we got to let other people know all about this. So my Christian faith was very simplified, very what I see it now, very surfacey of what a spiritual journey was and how to be spiritual. And I would get, even then, and even in a way more so now, except I let it go, all the what I say, all the ways to be a good Christian. And what somebody said, probably Carol, I mean, or everybody here, we make our own interpretation, really. What does justice mean? And justice can seem very harsh, like throw them into the fire and gnashing of teeth, and yeah, a lot of fear. And like, is that love? So it was confusing to me then, except siphoned down into simple stuff, what to do. And now I'm like, I pretty much like, I throw the baby out with the bathwater now, and maybe that will, I don't know, coalesce into something.
Give you a fresh start.
Well, I have a question. Were you taught that you were a part of the elect? In other words, were you Calvinists?
That's a very interesting question, because we weren't really taught that, because in general, because we believe that the whole scripture, go into all the world and preach the gospel so that everybody hears it, and then Jesus will come back. So there was a very simple motivation. And I know I think it's Revelation about the 144,000, and then, but gospel outreach now has become what's called Reformed gospel outreach, and they're very Calvinist. They're not, and we were like major evangelistic, and now they're like, well, if you're chosen, you'll find us, or so it's we weren't taught that, but the church I was part of does now.
Well,
Yeah, it's a pretty blasphemous position, I think, if you really get down to it.
I think it's very, very, very egotistical.
Yeah.
If that's the right word, there's probably more words for it, but it so appeals to, I've got it and you don't,
Weirdos.
and you may not be chosen, but
You're,
I am.
yeah.
Ugh.
well, that whole level of unfairness even affected me as a child, because the
Oh.
Catholic Church teaching was, if you're not Catholic, you're going to hell. And I could not wrap my head around as a child how my best friend down the street, who was a Protestant, was going to hell because she didn't go to my church. And it's just, and this line, many are called, but few are chosen. How totally unfair is that? What is the whole point of being here if you don't even have a chance in hell to get out without going to hell? So that makes my head spin.
This is why I'm not seeing a whole lot of compassion in Jesus' words. Now, Paul, who came later, was a masterful PR person. And so he wrapped this whole Platonic, squishiness around it and,
Sold it.
sold it, created a religion. But Jesus was pretty hard taskmaster.
But there may be some good reason for that. I mean, life was probably pretty harsh in these times too. And people were struggling to live and survive. So the message was more, directed towards these kind of needs than a spiritual need, as Linda said before too. And so the Bible is a collection of stories, okay, that may be, parable from Jesus, but they were really adapted to the needs of the people there. And truly religion took over that. And it made it its own. And is milking people for this purpose. Again, if people find their path, it's great. It's fantastic. If it gives them the path that they need to grow and answer the question, who am I? Right? Who am I? And this can take years until you figure out who you really are. It's not that trivial.
Well, can I say something like chosen? I think in some ways chosen sounds like it's coming from outside, but what it brings to mind is the part of the scripture that was in here where he is telling people, he talks to three people. It's like, come, follow me. He doesn't use that word, but that's essentially what he's doing. And one says, I have to go tell my family I'm leaving. And he just like disses them, well, you're out. And then the next one says, I have to do something good. Well, you're out. Well, then the third one follows him, but then they go eat at his house. So he got to go home too. What a jerk. What a jerk. What a jerk.
So, Linda, has reading this book changed your perception of Jesus a little bit?
A lot.
Yes.
Oh. Marlene, you haven't added your 2 cents today. How's your head spinning? You're muted. You're muted.
Now I'm talking. I think that it's interesting to me and kind of fun to look at the whole thing about how we create our reality, about goodness and badness and behavior. Like it's all about, is it okay to smack a kid? If this kid picks up a rock and he's going to throw it at me, what am I going to do to stay safe? Is it okay for me to hurt this person or not this person? And then we as human beings have created this system of choosing what is right and what is wrong behavior. And then we hang in terms like, well, it's about love. And if we do it for the right reason, it's okay. But if we do it to stay safe, or we do it because we're mad and we just want to hurt somebody, then it's a whole altogether different game we're playing. And we put all these people in jail and in prison. What about these two brothers that are in jail because their parents molested them and they ended up murdering their parents to stay safe, and we got them in jail? And then we got to decide about the rightness and the wrongness of behavior based on why we do what we do, and not only why we do, but how we do it. And the forgiveness piece of that, like my dad, I think about me and my feelings about my father and the abuse I received growing up, and how do I forgive that? Well, I understand it, and I look at all the whys and wherefores and how he was raised and how it all happened and who did what and who deserves what, and certainly a kid doesn't deserve. My dad used to tell me he's gonna knock my ears down a straddle of my hip bones and go out there in the garage right now and look at that board that's hanging on the wall, the one with the nails in it. And that's the one he's gonna use to knock my ears. And I would grin. I would grin because something about visualizing my ears down the straddle of my hip bones was like a cartoon, and it was fun. And then I got in trouble for laughing at that, you know? And so how we create and co-create our reality, and then what we do with that and how we feel about it, like my feelings that I have now as a 76-year-old woman about my dad and what he did and how he hurt me and how he made my life easier or better, or how he told me what it is a woman's job to do in the world, and women got to give birth to these babies that have all this pain, and men just watch that happen. And, you know, all the stuff that goes along with creating our personal reality and choosing the rightness and the wrongness of behavior, and what happens when we screw up and make a bad choice, and what do we do to ourselves and each other, and how we get along is like monumental. It's like monumental. And I think that we should all choose to love and forgive, and how I feel is my choice, and how I create. It's kind of like whether I like strawberry or chocolate, you know, I like chocolate. And does that mean something about me is wrong if you like strawberry? And I don't think it does, you know.
Thanks, Arlene.
Thank you for asking me. That's what's cooking in my brain.
I think it's kind of ironic that the one facet of Jesus that we're supposed to remember probably more than anything else is we say, love thy neighbor as thyself. But it didn't get pronounced until the guy's just about ready to be killed. All of this other stuff, all of these parables and that occurred before we heard about that. Why in the perspective of Jesus's walk that he didn't say this the first thing, you know, love thy neighbor as thyself, and make, you know, but he doesn't illustrate that very well in his teachings. He gives us these complex parables to decide what's right and wrong.
You see, I take it differently. I think it's flipped over. It should say, love thyself, and then you know how to love your neighbor.
Maybe that's what he was doing, huh?
Because if you don't love yourself, it's impossible to love anybody else.
Well, he worked at that a lot, didn't he?
What's that?
He worked at that a lot.
Yeah.
You know, doing the right thing for yourself, or
yeah.
Well, anybody else have any closing thoughts or comments? Cheryl, do you? No? Okay. Anybody have? So Eric, do you want to sum up?
Yeah, I have a little summary paragraph here that I'm going to read. In summary, while Thomas Jefferson's Bible takes a fresher look at the message of Jesus, but really the message of Jesus is interpreted by his apostles, not by all of us for that matter. The parables require interpretation by each one's ego, while being submitted to further interpretation through the ages. So this keeps on going. We just keep on giving to the Bible, you know, more new meanings, without using the message as a mean to enter a spiritual path. It keeps us stuck in the past that is not even ours anymore. The battle over the meaning of the word in the scripture are hence pointless and feels like lawyering. The use of Jesus' message to pursue an authentic and honest spiritual path is very valuable, while the claiming of Jesus as our Savior is pointless outside of the context of a spiritual journey. As being one with all there is, each one each one of us is one with Jesus, able to converse with him, asking for guidance and following one's own path towards enlightenment and ascension. No one is coming to save you while you're looking outside of yourself. Each one of us is here to save themselves while looking inside of themselves. And this is really the message I take from this exercise.
Did you write that, or is that written by somebody?
No, I wrote it.
That's nice.
Thank you.
Let's see if we get
Quotable,
that
then.
into the book here.
Yes.
Eric,
Eric's interpretation of Jesus.
okay, well, that's interesting, and we still have more discussion about Jesus next meeting, when Anand is going to lead us through the final chapters of the book, discussing the things that happen in Jerusalem at the end of Jesus's life. So we still got more to churn on this subject. So, all right. So we'll end the discussion and close with a song, Why Me, Lord, from Chris Christopherson.
Oh, I love that song.
Well, I hope he's up there holding hands with Jesus today, because now there's a little light that's gone out of the material world. So we'll close our meeting with Namaste. So if you unmute yourselves and share a greeting to each and every soul that's here and those who couldn't join us. Namaste.
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 Okay.
Namaste. Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste. Namaste. The Abundant Life Center is supported by your gifts. And if you would like to make a donation to our community, you can do so by sending a check to our treasurer, Cindy, or by donating on our website. And we use those funds to keep our group going and to help others in need when we find a cause that we'd like to donate to. So thank you for your contribution.